This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
Do you ever have a story that you just can't get out of your head?
One that you play the details of over and over with your friends?
Well, you've come to the right place. I'm Claire.
And I'm Susan.
And this is Justice Pending,
a weekly true crime podcast where we discuss tantalizing crimes with more questions than answers.
Welcome back to Justice Pending. I'm Claire.
And I'm Susan. And today's case is one that has baffled investigators, devastated a family, and haunted the true crime community for nearly 2 decades. We're talking about the disappearance of Jennifer Kesse from Orlando, Florida in 2006.
Jennifer was 24 years old, living her best life. She had just bought her own condo, had a steady job, a long-term boyfriend, and was known for being responsible to a fault. But on January 24th, 2006, she vanished without a trace.
And the details of her case, from the eerie security footage to the mysterious figure who may hold the answers, make this one of the most haunting, unsolved disappearances in recent memory.
So, who was Jennifer Kesse? She was a young professional working as a finance major for a timeshare company in Orlando. She was smart, driven, and independent. Friends described her as warm, loyal, and the kind of person you could always count on.
She had also recently bought a condo in a developing area of Orlando. And while it was exciting to have her own place, she sometimes expressed concerns to friends and family about the safety of the area.
Right. So her building was under construction, and many of the workers living nearby were men she didn't really know. She mentioned feeling uneasy at times, but she carried on, balancing her busy job and her relationship with her boyfriend, Rob, who lived about 3 hours away in Fort Lauderdale.
Her life seemed to be on the right track, but on the morning of January 24th, 2006, that all changed.
All right, so the night before Jennifer disappeared, on January 23rd, she had driven back from a weekend trip with Rob. She spoke with her father on the phone around 6 p.m. And later, she chatted with her boyfriend on the phone again before going to bed. Everything seemed normal.
The next morning, she was expected at work by 8 a.m., but didn't show. And she didn't call in either, which was completely out of character for her.
So her coworkers quickly became concerned and reached out to her family. By that evening, when no one from her had heard from her all day, her parents drove from Tampa to Orlando.
And when they got to her condo and entered, nothing looked out of the ordinary. Nothing looked disturbed. Her purse, her phone, her iPod were gone. And all of that was normal, suggesting that she had left for work. But her luggage from the weekend trip was still out, and the clothes she had worn were laid neatly on a chair. So that was something to note.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can just picture how eerie this is. So you have this like responsible woman working in finance, and suddenly she doesn't show up to work one day. And so, of course, everyone's like, what's going on? And you would expect if you show up at someone's apartment and something bad has happened, you would expect to see signs of a struggle. You would see like a broken window or like a chair tipped over. But to see nothing, for everything to be completely as expected, and especially like your purse and phone missing, it's like she just walked away and never came back.
That's right. So here's where things start to get strange. So obviously alarm bells are sounded and people are on the case. So 2 days later, police found her black Chevy Malibu, her car parked at a nearby apartment complex about a mile away. And this is just where the mystery gets started.
Yeah. So we don't know why she would be at this nearby apartment complex. There's not like a known connection there. And so people are looking at any evidence they can find, and they discover surveillance footage from that complex. And it's grainy. It's not what we'd like to see. It's not high def. This is 2006 and it's a surveillance camera in a parking lot. So it's not going to be perfect, but it does show a person parking Jennifer's car and walking away. And it's not Jennifer. It's not known who this is, but it's definitely not Jennifer Kesse. It doesn't look anything like her. It doesn't even look like a woman. It really looks like an unknown male. And the timestamp put it just after noon on the day that Jennifer vanished.
And the very getting back to the actual surveillance, the footage, the person's face is never visible. This is probably one of the luckiest, in fact, police have called it the luckiest break for a suspect, or unluckiest for them as investigators, because the person's face is never visible. So every time the frame of the video catches the person, it's like right in the blind spots of the security gate bars. So there is just no way to identify who this person is.
Yeah, all we see is a silhouette. They think the person is fairly small, like between 5'3" and 5'5", possibly wearing like work clothes, but that's it. No clear image, no known identity.
And inside Jennifer's car, investigators found no signs of struggle, just like her apartment. The car had been wiped down except for one latent fingerprint on the door handle, which has never been matched.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. Everyone is telling her she dreamt it, but in The Woman in Cabin 10, Lo Blacklock is determined to uncover the truth. In the gripping new thriller coming to Netflix October 10th, Keira Knightley plays a journalist aboard a luxury yacht who witnesses a crime she can't unsee. Adapted from Ruth Ware's best-selling novel, directed by Simon Stone. Watch The Woman in Cabin 10, only on Netflix on October 10th.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Yeah, so a lot of questions here. If you go into someone's car, you probably think, oh, it'll be easy to find fingerprints, but it's actually like a high touch area. I learned this when I was working as a producer for 48 Hours on CBS, that places like steering wheels and door handles are the worst places to try to get a fingerprint, because you touch it so many times that the fingerprints all blend together. And there's usually not a usable print. I do think it's interesting that investigators believe that the car was wiped down. So that's a level of sophistication for a potential hacker criminal that shows some planning here, that they were hoping to erase any kind of evidence. But the fact that there's not a fingerprint on her car that's able to be matched, that doesn't surprise me as much. But the no signs of a struggle. So did she leave willingly from her car? Was she incapacitated? Those are all possible, right?
That's right. I mean, because we don't have the security footage at her own apartment.
Yeah.
We don't know. There's a million theories.
Yeah. And what they're going on is that because her purse was with her, was missing, was not in the apartment, her phone's gone, that and her car is left her apartment, that she left possibly to go to work and then somehow was diverted and ends up in this other complex. It's really, really bizarre.
Yeah, I think, the most likely scenario is the abduction while she was leaving for work, or, attacked in or around her condo parking lot. And then, she obviously would have her car keys on her, and that person, took her or took her car.
Yeah. So early on, suspicion turned toward the construction workers at Jennifer's condo complex. She had actually told friends that some of them made her feel uncomfortable. So that's obviously a theory that you have to go on. I've seen, if it's not a romantic partner who's going to cause you harm, it's going to be someone who has access to your home. And so these construction workers, they are going to be on site early in the morning, late at night, seeing people coming and going. Jennifer was a very attractive young woman. The idea that something could have happened to her based on just the fact that they would have seen her every day and potentially a crime of opportunity, it's really scary to think about that she didn't see it coming, right?
Oh, 100%. I mean, you got to look at the boyfriend. He was
Yep, of
clear,
course.
solid alibi. Got to look at ex-boyfriends. I mean, everything, turned out okay on their end.
Yeah,
So it really, a lot of people just believe that she was targeted by someone who had been watching her, like you said. Um, the fact that it was a stranger to her, this person might have, been watching her for a while, so she wasn't a stranger to him.
right. Right. I mean, of course, you think, could this be the boyfriend? And the fact that he lived 3 hours away, they're able to show that he was where he was supposed to be and, was totally cleared. So that's guy, you just think about him. They've just had a trip together. Everything seems good. And then she drops off the radar, just completely disappears into thin air. And then he's also questioned as a suspect, right? That's got to be
Yeah, of course.
terrifying.
I know. And he joined, alongside him or her family. I mean, everyone wants
Yeah.
answers, and these are the constants in the case. And it's always the case with, all of these justice pending cases, but it's the determination of Jennifer's family. Her parents have fought tirelessly to keep her name in the public eye. They've held press conferences and really have just never stopped looking for answers. And it's such a
Yeah.
shame because there is that security footage. And,
I know.
and you would think that there would be records of all the workers on the buildings. Unfortunately, I don't believe that's the case. And,
Yeah.
you just don't know who was hired as a day worker or for how long or who else lived in the area. And, unfortunately,
Yeah.
without regular surveillance footage and cameras, I mean, Ring cameras weren't happening back then. I mean, you think about
Right.
today and how, quote unquote safer or how much more, watched we are. And, some people take issue with that. And then, there's these cases where you wish that existed back then.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. If there were any other cameras besides that one, that
Mhm.
could really help this case. I mean, they have looked at everything. There are theories about human trafficking, the
Mhm.
idea that Jennifer could still be alive, but she's been taken and has no way of getting back to her family or contacting them. Police have said they don't have any evidence to support that, but it's one of those things where it's difficult to prove something didn't happen. So I think her family also clinging to hope. It, reminds me of other cases like the Amy Bradley case that we talked about, where she disappeared from the cruise ship and her
Yep.
family holds on to a belief that she's out there somewhere and that as awful as it is to imagine that she could be a victim of human trafficking, but still alive. It does give them like a glimmer of hope, but it's just a really baffling case. And Jennifer's family believe that whatever happened, it happened fast because they think she would have fought back.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't think anyone, I think it's it has to be one of those cases where she just didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
You go
Yeah.
about your
And
day with your routine and
yeah. And to have no evidence in the car, like there's not blood, there's not a weapon, found nearby. You just really wonder, like, how did they pull this off? How did they get this grown woman to disappear into thin air with no signs of a struggle? It's really hard to imagine.
it really is. And her family has hired private investigators. They continue to chase leads. They actually got access to the open case file.
Oh yeah, yeah. This is a big development. So in 2018, so 12 years after her disappearance, Jennifer's family sued the Orlando Police Department and was able to get access to Jennifer's case files. Like winning a lawsuit against the police is really difficult to do because they have, qualified immunity. Like we do give police officers, as we should, the benefit of the doubt that they're doing the best that they can to solve these cases, and that we can't always know everything that law enforcement knows because it could jeopardize the case. But in this instance, their frustration with how the investigation had been handled was heard in open court, and the Kesse family won. So they got the right to review thousands of pages of reports, videos, and photos independently. That's something that many victims' families are not able to do when a case is still open.
Yeah. And then they were able to hand that right off to some, private investigators who continue to chase those leads. Because, you think about how many suspects and names and address. I mean, you have the information at your disposal, and you can just go have, a private investigator chase it.
Yeah. So that's, been 7 years now since that has happened. And you have to believe that everyone's doing everything they can to try to find Jennifer. But unfortunately, we are still in so many ways the same place that we were 20 years ago. Jennifer's body has never been found. No one has ever been charged.
Yeah. And I mean, the biggest question is there. Who's that figure caught on camera? I mean, was Jennifer taken by someone she knew, random? I mean, there's so many questions.
Yeah. And why has no forensic evidence led to a breakthrough? They do have that single fingerprint still out there from her car door handle that's waiting to be matched, but fingerprints are hard. It's not as easy. Yeah. It's not like they have hair or blood or semen. They just have a fingerprint. So it's something, but it's far from like a smoking gun.
Totally. And, as always, we'd like to remember Jennifer's disappearance is more than just a cold case file. It really is a story of a vibrant young woman with her whole life ahead of her, and, a family and friends who loved her.
Yeah, it's a reminder of how fragile our lives can be and our sense of security, even with, the surveillance that we have and modern day technology and resources. Justice sometimes remains just out of reach.
And, the Kesse family does continue. We all do continue to hold out hope that one day, there will be answers on this. But really, it's up there until then as one of Florida's most haunting unsolved mysteries, which is, there's a lot that comes out of Florida, unfortunately.
That's true.
For this to be up there, it's the kudos to the family for keeping this so relevant all these years ago.
Yeah, I think Florida, I always talk about how like the hot climates, the tropical climates seem to breed more crime. I don't know if it's it is something about how there's more crime in hot areas, even in hot months. There's always a crime spike. People get agitated. They get shorter fuse. And so Florida, it's not the only reason, but it's part of it. Texas too. Speaking from personal experience, there's always a crime wave in August in Texas when it's as hot as can be. Yeah. And then, you think about Florida and all the places there are to get rid of a body. You have the ocean, you have all this marsh, swamps, alligators, right? It's definitely problematic when you think about evidence and how it could just be lost in the vast landscape of Florida. So if you have any information on what happened to Jennifer Kesse, authorities want to hear from you. You can contact the Orlando Police Department or Crime Stoppers. Tips can still make a difference.
Jennifer at the time was just 24 years old with her whole future ahead of her. And she, her family, everyone deserves answers and justice.
And we hope that they are coming soon. That's all for this episode of Justice Pending. We'll be back next week with an all-new case. Until then, I'm Claire.
And I'm Susan. Stay safe and stay curious.
Justice Pending is recorded in Dallas, Texas for Rebel Studios. It's hosted by me, Claire Sanama, and Susan Passoni. Our theme music is Bending Truth, licensed at premiumbeat.com. We appreciate all listener feedback. Leave a review wherever you're listening right now, and we might read it on the air. Thanks for joining us.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.